Hi, welcome to Shop Talk Live, episode 335. This is a special episode Ben and I have been wanting to record for a while, but I think it couldn't have happened at a better time because CFC just announced that Phil Morley will be taking over the 9-month intensive program. We can't think of a more fitting person, and we get to talk a bit about the program and what he's been doing in Maine. Woodworking Travel Tours is now open for registration. This year is going to be September 8th through 15th and hosted by Woodsmith Magazine's Phil Huber and Mike Pekovich. They'll be touring several museums, furniture schools, and even the Triton tool manufacturing plant. So a pretty awesome opportunity to spend 7 days with some of your favorite editors in England. All right, let's get started with the episode.
I am in the fellowship building, so it's pretty quiet. There might be a few little noises. Sarah's over there banging her bowls around.
So, all right, but now do you have to walk around and you are a teacher, you are a full-time teacher now. Do you sit there and walk around and keep people on task throughout the day?
You mean once I become the full-time
teacher? Okay, all right.
Yeah, so I'm not the teacher yet.
You're not the teacher yet? Okay.
No, this is for next year. It starts in September. So September to May.
So this is
2025 to 2026.
The 9-month program runs once a year, right? So it's not like a rolling thing.
Yeah, once a year. Academic calendar.
And that actually is an academic style calendar.
Yeah.
Okay. Will you be grading students?
No.
Will you? Okay.
No grading.
But so what's the scariest part of becoming the head of the 9-month program at one of the most prestigious woodworking schools in the land?
I think it's that.
The job title.
The job title. It's a huge responsibility, but I've really looked at it as a huge opportunity too. And we moved up to Maine, kind of in the back of my head. So I came up here last year, winter, to co-teach with Tim Russo, and in the back of my head, I was like, maybe Tim will be done in a few years, and if I could work my way into that position, that'd be cool. Little did I know that was his last year. So I found out as soon as I got here, he was done. I think he did 5 years as the lead instructor, but he's been around campus for I think 20 years or something.
Yeah.
A long time. And so it was a real thing where we were like, okay, so this is what I want to do right now at this time. And the more I was around campus and the fellowship, the more I just wanted to be here. And I need not get in my head too much. There's been some really amazing lead instructors, and I think I'm going to find my feet. It's going to take me a minute. But I think it's really just keeping kind of steering the ship forward on a good path and keeping people on track is going to be the biggest challenge. And just the dynamics of having, not even to do with woodworking, 12 students from all different paths, and just making sure everyone's kind of gelling and enjoying themselves and having a good time, because it is an intensive program. So, we're going pretty hard and throwing a lot of information at them. And people's lives are not, as much as they would probably want them to just be stopped and all they're doing is woodworking, life still goes on. So I think that's going to be the biggest challenge. But yeah, I'm really not going to know until I'm doing it. But I am really excited for the opportunity, and I'm a little bit shocked that it's happening.
You're the only one.
Good way.
I'm not. Yeah. It made perfect sense to me.
I appreciate it.
It actually made so much sense that hearing that it was not a fully planned out thing even before the move. Honestly, it was oh, they need a new instructor. I was like, well, that's Phil. And I was like, oh, okay, so this has kind of been in place the whole time, but it wasn't. Like, this has just happened to work out.
Yeah, and this is the first year that they've, I believe, ever put out the application, where they've put out an advertisement for people to apply. I believe Peter has been the one that's kind of found the lead instructor before. And obviously it's probably more than just Peter, but I think he was the one that really took that on. So it definitely wasn't just a shoe-in as much as I kind of was hoping it was. This is probably the first time I've really ever had an interview. I guess
did you dress up or did you just walk in?
It was a Zoom meeting.
Oh,
It was very interesting because there were several members and some of them were not, in the area. But yeah, so I really had no idea. It took nearly 6 months to find out if I got the job. And so I was absolutely just, beside myself. It's like, it was a roller coaster.
Yeah.
And then, that roller coaster really didn't stop once they said, yes, you've got it. And I'm like, oh, okay. This is real. So I'm just really, really excited about it, and it's such a great program, and it's not like I'm reinventing anything. I will put my touch on things over time, but I'm walking into something that's already amazing.
Yeah, it isn't broken, and you have to fix it.
Right. Yeah, and it's not like I'm writing the program. We're sticking with the program that's been going on for a while. And like I said, like I'm not trying to switch things up. Definitely at the beginning. I mean, there's little things I want to interject over time, just from the little bit I know. I've co-taught twice now, and it's been really amazing to co-teach with Tim Rousseau, and then get to co-teach with Aled, which I had no idea that was going to happen, and they're very different in their approach, and I probably feel like I fall in between the two of them. And so, yeah.
Without going too far, what's like, I know Tim fairly well.
Right.
Very systematic woodworker. Yep. Very chill.
Yep.
But with like a brooding intensity too, where there's like this there's like that, okay, he is the smartest person in the room,
right.
Like I wouldn't tell him this, but like it's like you are intimidated,
Yeah.
What about Aled? What kind of teacher is Aled?
Well, I think what the amazing thing, what I noticed right away, was teaching in this environment is what made Tim and Aled. So not that they weren't amazing to start with.
Yeah.
And they would tell you as much. Like, I mean, they did stuff that I was like, holy cow, that's amazing. Like, I'm telling you, like, we have so many amazing people that come through the program. They also get to learn, right? I mean, that's how this program works. It's not just you. You have co-teachers, and they're meant to be at the top of their game. And so you get to learn too. And so that was really eye-opening to me and excited me about the position. I would say the difference with Aled, and it's a little bit hard to know because I only talked with Tim once and I only talked with Aled once. But Aled definitely he's, I would say, more of a designer.
Okay.
It's not that Tim doesn't design, but more industrial British design. Design is very important to him. He's an amazing drawer, like unbelievable. And so I feel like he keeps things very tight. And I think Tim was probably, in my opinion, didn't interject too much of Tim into everyone's piece.
Okay.
And so he was more guiding them through their piece. And Aled obviously does the same, but I think you can definitely tell, when Aled taught and when Tim taught. Good or bad, I'm not saying either one, but it was just, for me, I think it was really important for me to see the two different styles. Because you've got to keep a pretty tight ship, which is easier said than done. People come with, grand ideas and not a lot of experience, and 9 months sounds like a whole lot of time, which, it is to any of us, but in the grand scheme of things, as far as learning the craft, it's not a lot of time. they're going to get to excel that time. Like it's 9 months, but it's almost like you're jamming in 2 years in that 9 months just because of the experience they're going to get from all the other instructors.
Mm-hmm.
But, you have 6 weeks to build a case piece. You can't be too crazy about it.
Yeah.
It's 6 weeks is not a long time. And so it's almost a disservice if you just let them go wild with it and then they never finish it.
Is that designing too?
They just, designing. And there's other stuff that happens within that time period.
All right. So for folks who don't know much about the 9-month program at Center for Furniture Craftsmanship, there's, I believe, 3 main pieces, right?
Yeah, so it actually pulled up the website because I know I'm going to forget the order of it. But it's the basic woodworking we started out with. Then there's the table and drawer. So these are set projects. The table and drawer is a set project. They have a little bit of design influence in it. Then there's the tool cabinet, which is an absolute set project. It's very much their first time they're going to be introduced to jigs and more production type work. Then we jump into CNC. Then it's finishing. Then it's drawing and design. Then it's case piece. So that's going to be their first. So they get to do all of that before the case piece.
Okay.
And that's where they get to design their own piece. And there are parameters, size. It's going to be a solid wood case piece for the most part. There's a little leeway if, hey, I want to do a flat inset door. Well, solid wood's not the way to go. And so there's small exceptions. I think it's got to have like a drawer, a frame back, a few other little things. And then they do turning, then veneer marquetry. And then the next kind of major project is curvature. And so in curvature, they get to design a piece. And I think that's 6 weeks also. And then they jump into, so right now they're finishing up curvature. I think next week is their last week. Then they jump into product development, which is a lot of fun. That's 5 weeks.
Forgot about that.
Yeah.
This is like Alid's baby, isn't it?
Oh, and that's the thing. That's Alid loves. Like, Alid is such an amazing designer.
So what's the thing with the product development? What are they doing?
Well, so kind of like it says, it's a product. So you're going to come up, design something that you can. And I think it depends on who's teaching it because it does change. But something you can reproduce as a product. Some people in the past, I think, have put a set price point to it.
Okay.
It's like it's got to be under $300 that you're going to sell it for. And so then, you can keep track and see how much it's going to take you and see if that's a practical thing or not. I'm not sure how Alid is running it this time. I'm going to find out because I am going to step in and just see how it's going to go. But yeah, it's small batch products. The one I think of the most, just because she's a good friend of mine, is Leslie Webb. And I don't know if you've seen her, I don't know what she calls it, but it's like a flower display.
Oh,
so
yeah.
It's really cool. It's like a fan. These pieces with that fan out. And so I believe that was her products. And then the last segment is the chairs. So they get to design and build a chair.
There's so much in
it's a lot.
9 months is not. I'm like, you can build one project in 9 months.
It's a lot, but it's the thing that people don't understand is it's pretty much 24/7 shop to a certain extent. I believe 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock, you can't use machines, and I think it's more of a noise thing. But as long as you've got a body system, you'll have. So these students are dedicated students. They're here first thing in the morning. It starts at 9. Like my time is 9 to 4:30.
Okay.
Which I guarantee is not going to be what happens. I'm probably going to be there 6 in the morning and staying there till 8. Just trying to figure everything out. But the students can come in earlier and stay late, and they do. They a lot of times it seems like they will they did their case piece to a certain point, and then they put it away. Then they get into the other project, and then they kind of pull that piece out, And I think that's why you want to try to keep it somewhat tame, because it adds a lot of stress if they're just building a piece that really should be 6 months by itself. So I think it's a fine line to walk. But yeah, it's pretty amazing, and the different instructors and everyone that comes into it's pretty incredible.
Yeah, so there's visiting instructors that come in and like, so you don't teach them finishing, right?
No.
You could, but
yeah, probably not. I don't know. Like, I mean, I spray, but I don't know it like a science. Like the person, I forget his name, but the guy that comes in, it's a science. He knows stuff. You know, I'm more like it's a bit of a feel thing and a bit of a try this and back off that, and you know, I'm looking at it and seeing what's happening, and you know, it's not the way to teach it.
Yeah,
it's a good system.
Yeah, I mean, it works for us, right, Amanda?
Yeah,
but it's
most of the time for me.
Most of the time, well, I mean, sometimes you know, you live and learn. It's like add a little bit more xylem and this, that, the other, but they go through all kinds of. Yeah, I'm not a finisher. They go through all kinds of stuff, which is really pretty amazing.
All right, so question for both of you, because maybe some people don't know. Amanda, you apprenticed under Phil for years, right?
Yeah, 2 years part-time, 2 years full-time. Yeah.
So a lot of what you know came directly from Phil.
It did, yeah. Most of what I know came directly from Phil.
Both of you left Texas knowing how to finish furniture. Have you had to relearn how to finish furniture in Maine and Philadelphia? I know, Amanda, you don't have the spray.
I can't spray, so I'd probably have to start from scratch. I like remember most of it, but it really is like a feel thing. You kind of have to like, okay, wait, what's happening? Really look at it. And, yeah, the climate's completely different here. I don't know.
It's freaking cold, Amanda. So I don't have a way to spray, and you. I don't recommend this to anyone, but we used to just spray outside, which is really not good for many reasons. But it worked, and you know, we're doing like, well, we build maybe 6 pieces a year or something. But they do have a spray booth at the school, but it's shut down a lot of times because, like right now, they're doing a turning intensive. So Beth Island's over there, and so we can't use it. And so I'm trying.
You get to hang out with Beth Ireland?
She's amazing. I'm trying more Osmo.
Okay.
It seems like they've drinking the Kool-Aid up here of Osmo. I kind of like it. And I think the thing is, what's different now is like when me and Amanda were working together, or even by myself, Osmo's too slow. And in my side shop, like I don't have a dedicated finishing booth, and so it's just too slow. Like we had to kind of get things going, and we worked on multiple projects. I could never see that working. So now with this kind of life change for me, I'm not going to be building multiple pieces at the same time. And so I'm building right now, and I have been for the last year. I've been in a fellowship for about a year. And so I've been using Osmo, and I kind of like it. It's just nice to use, and it's not got all those nasty chemicals. So we'll see.
Yeah. That confirms that for me, because that's what I switched to, and I like it.
Right.
Yeah,
I was against it for so long.
Was Phil really stubborn?
I think you summed it up pretty well, Phil. Like, if we kind of you have no choice but to finish really quickly, and I mean, in like the heat, you know, the conversion varnish will like flash in like 3 minutes, and you can get three coats on a piece in a day.
Yep.
Versus, you know, like a week of Osmo.
Like dust dropping in your finish.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the big. So I just refinished my parents' table, and I did it down at the fine woodworking shop, and I would wheel it into another room when I thought about it. And I I was bound and determined to put like a really thick coat of finish on this table. I was sick of it getting refinished. And I brushed a coat on and I left. And I swear to God, somebody was like walked in right after me and was like, I'm about to mill a bunch of lumber. And just I came in the next day and there was so much dust settled in that finish. Yeah. And it was just like,
yeah.
By the time I was done sanding it out, it felt like, okay, I just lost 2 coats,
And,
so
yeah. And I mean, there's a reason why industry and most professional shops that produce significant work use, lacquers and conversion varnishes. And the beauty of them is that they're so durable. But the issue that I've had, and a friend of mine, Jack Forsberg, on Instagram, he kind of reached out to me. We had him on a podcast, and he kind of mentioned to me, which was eye-opening. He's like, Phil, you build an heirloom furniture because you're building it to like the highest level you can, so it lasts, whatever, 100 years, whatever. And he goes, but you're putting a finish on it that no one can refinish. Like it's so difficult to refinish those finishes. You have to strip it down. You can't touch it up, and you get kind of a glare through it where, because of the solvents in the finish, when you apply it and you get certain light hitting on it, you don't really see the wood. And so it's just like, it was just kind of eye-opening to me. And I was like, I would love to move away from it slowly and get to meet different furniture makers that I've admired and see the finishing they do. I'm like, okay, like maybe it's time to move away from that. You stick with what you know a lot of times, right? Yeah.
From a purely aesthetic standpoint, what would be your finish of choice?
Hey, when you get a good conversion varnish laying down, it looks really good, except for that point I just said, like the light on it sometimes. I love the evenness of it. Some of these, I'm still playing around, like Osmo. Sometimes I don't feel like it builds up enough, so it doesn't have like a really nice sheen. Okay. And I know there's ways to work that. So again, I'm not a finisher, but being at the school and being exposed to people that know more about it has been helpful. Tim Rousseau actually kind of showed me a lot of little things to do, and so give it time. Everything I built right now is small, so I'm just a part of me is like, would I use that on a bigger record console? I'm not sure yet. As much as I want to move away from spray, just more because of the chemicals and health impacts.
It is hard to match that sheen, though. Like, and he like Phil had a system for cleaning out the pores, so you'd still get that wood feel to it, like versus a lot of like lacquers. Yeah, it's like it's hard to match that.
Yeah.
So yeah. Well, Amanda, we've got a few questions. I feel like we could just wander around aimlessly with Phil for a while, talking about the school. And, well, but it's,
there's a lot.
It's a part of it.
But you have such a unique. Okay, fine. All right. There's very few people who can make a piece of furniture and make a piece of identifiable furniture that, like, out of nowhere, I could see a piece and say, that's Phil.
Yeah.
Right? I know it's Phil. And then to the point where you get knocked off and people start building Phil pieces, but I still know the real one. There's very few people who have done that in a professional setting and like been able to feed a family and continually push yourself, design wise, woodworking wise, and all of that. Your trajectory has been astonishing to watch.
I appreciate it. It's a lot of luck.
There's always luck involved in everything, but there's a lot of talent. Okay, like it's not just luck. All right.
Yeah, but behind closed doors.
Me and Amanda both had the first original OG, Michael Colker, who kind of set us on the path.
Your first teacher, really?
Yeah, yeah. But I had other teachers, obviously, but he was the one that sent me down this path of, fine craft.
There's I always, in football, they talk about coaching family trees and all that stuff. I always think about woodworking family trees, where it's like, you've got your North Bennett Street people who it's like that kind of all leads back to Phil Lowe and, but Michael Corker is like going to be like 20 years from now, we're going to talk about his woodworking family tree.
Yeah.
All right. So this question, I'm going to jump in the middle of these, Amanda. And then you grab whatever you want next, but I feel like we're naturally heading to word workers question from Discord, because I have riffs of this question. Does Phil feel like having a signature piece is the goal / measurement of achievement for a designer or craftsperson, or is it a boundary around creativity? And how does this affect your practice? So you're a weird one, Phil, because I can think of like probably 3 signature pieces. Your first not your first rocker, but the rocker, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And then
that was my first rocker. Yeah.
That was your first rocker. I just decided to make a rocker one day, and I made that one. Yeah. Oops.
Well,
got it right.
The very first one was it was not as good. So it was I edited that first one.
It was just a little less good.
All right. Well, the rest of us probably would not have known. But
right.
So the rocker, I would consider a Philip Morley signature piece. I would consider the lounge chair a signature piece, and then I would consider the record console a signature piece. A part of me wants to say the bar stools. I don't know. Maybe they're just all maybe I'm just fanboying right now. So.
Well, I feel like Phil's the record console furniture maker. Like, when I think of a record console, I'm like, you go to Phil for a record console.
My brother was drooling over stuff like as like a wannabe audiophile dude, and he was like, "There's this guy down in Texas." I was like, "Yeah, Philip Morley." He's like,
we know.
Well, I don't think he's like in your thing. He makes record consoles. I was like, "Yeah, it's Philip Morley." And he was like, and then eventually, like, he showed me the Instagram. I was like, yes, that's Philip Morley, dude. Like that, like, yeah.
I've had a couple like interesting, like I've been selling occasionally here and there. I'll sell like a tool on Facebook Marketplace or something, and it's come up twice since I've lived in Philly. One person like may have connected the name or something on Facebook Marketplace, but I was selling like a sustainer I didn't need. And the guy was like, so you might recognize this rocking chair. There's this famous woodworker or no, sorry, lounge chair. And he was like, Phil Morley. I'm like, yeah, I know who he is. But it's happened twice since I've sold tools of somebody in Philly.
I thought you were going to say you found my lounge chair on Facebook Marketplace. No. That's when you know you've made it.
Right. No. But
that's funny.
Awesome. Honestly, I don't really think about signature pieces, but I do think early on, because I did the rocking chair, and then early on when I started branding myself, that rocking chair was a part of the logo. And there was a good graphic designer friend of mine who I could never afford. He's absolutely amazing, worth every penny. Curtis Jacobs, Neighborhood Studios. And, he was being kind of nice and kind. And we would, he was like, yeah, what do you think of this? And he didn't really want to tell me what he thought, right? Like it's like someone asking me about a piece of furniture that may be like, epoxy river table or something. No, not my thing. If you're into it, that's fine. But I find it's like, just tell me what you really think. And he said, I think you are putting yourself in a box. So it's funny that question came up. She said, you do more than rocking chairs, right? And I was like, yeah. He goes, so I don't think your logo should be the rocking chair. Where I know Gary Weeks Furniture Company, there's a rocking chair in their logo, and of course they do more than rocking chairs. But the rocking chair, I still believe today, is the number one thing they sell the most of.
Mm-hmm.
And so that makes a little more sense. And I think that's kind of where the business came from, was this rocking chair. And so he's the one that rebranded me. And so I thought that was very interesting, because I think that, to that guy's point, put yourself in a box. But I think for me, it sounds all very weird to me to have people say like they recognize my work and stuff, because I think I'm just doing what I do. But that is very meaningful to me, to know that people can identify my work. I don't think I'm putting that much intention into it. I'm just building. Yeah.
So you don't make rocking chairs anymore?
So if someone wants to pay me, I'll do it. But I don't even try to advertise it too much.
Okay. I had almost
work.
thought that it got to the point where you're like, nah, I don't really do that anymore.
No, like I would build them, and I'd build maybe 4 at a time. If I got an order for like 2, and then I'll do 4. Like most furniture makers, you can have a product, and that's fine, but you need to be able to sell the product. And so that's a different skill set. And I've never been super great at selling. I mean, I've sell one-of-a-kind pieces, and it's just people reaching out and being like, I like your work. Can you design me a piece? But as Amanda knows, like trying to come up with a product is not, it's weird. I love designing, developing, and jigging up and making products, but I hate trying to sell them. It's just not the thing that gets me excited. So that's kind of the rocket chair. So it's like, I have it there. If someone reaches out and they want one, I'll do it. But the price is going to be where I'm almost putting them off. And so if they do it, then it's worth it.
So
makes sense.
Did you set out, because that's a strange distinction to me, Joe Blow hobbyist woodworker, like a design as a product versus a design as a commission. And like, of course that's different. Of course that's different. But I would have never thought of it that way.
Right.
So when you made the rocker, when you made the lounge chair, were those with products in mind that you were like, okay, I'm gonna get sick of making these one day, or were those commissioned first?
Well, I think it's a little different because of chairs. So typically when you're doing chairs, you are thinking products because of just the amount of jigs and setup it takes. And so then you invest that much time. And sure, like the first rocking chair I did, I just overlapped parts and scribed them and hand chiseled and whatever. Like I just kind of did it. And then when I started getting a few orders for them, then I was like, okay, I need to make jigs for them. And then by investing that much time in that, I was like, okay, I guess it's a product. But again, I didn't take out. We did a little advertisement on the rocking chair, but most things I didn't like advertise like this is a product, right? You have furniture makers that they'll have a line of furniture, and that's what they're pushing. I was more like, I do have this product that I've jigged up for, more than happy to make this, but really it's more the commission work I wanted to do, the unique, one-of-a-kind stuff, which, Amanda knows, like, a lot of people are like, whoa, so you've built that record console, now, so the next one is going to be so much faster. It's like, no, not really, because it's just, there's so much information involved, except for the ones me and Amanda did as, like, we had one, maybe 2 designs, but they were actual products. Like we did a record console that was designed to be small batch production. And so I had a company in Houston lay up the veneer plywood. And then I had a company in Austin that CNC'd out the parts. And then me and Amanda had to try to figure out how it went together and do all the joinery and the edge banding and all that stuff. But that, because we would get an order of like maybe 8 of them at a time. And so that was a product. But it's just, it's really not where my heart is, to be honest. I like the challenge of doing one of a kind pieces. As much as like, I get 3/4 of the way and I'm like, I'm done. It's like, I don't want to work on this anymore.
Yeah.
I'm going to get a paycheck.
Amanda, what would that be like when, for you, was that a mind shift between like, okay, we have to knock out X number of these in a day versus, because I would assume a lot of the work is, all right, fine, weird assumption. Phil, are you like making all the jigs and stuff, and then would you be knocking out parts off the jigs? How does that balance of work play out?
I mean, we would share a little bit of that responsibility, but Amanda was like producing. I think she did all the. We had a whole chart system and a sticker system that it was like, just because we had the different domino plates, because these cases were just dominoed together, and so we had different domino plates where she would be able to go to that chart and be like, okay, put this plate on, and I would sticker the parts. Yeah. She would go
green
and do
sticker.
Yeah,
adjust the plate. Which again, like
great.
All of these things, everything he's answered in this question answers. Not that we didn't know this already, but why he's in the position he is now. Is like that. It's design, it's production, it's like organizing yourself to set up for success. It was a lot of things like that go into that. Even of 8, replicas of the same cabinet. Like there's a reason it went smoothly.
Great.
Mostly.
I mean, she I'll give Amanda a task, man. She would go to town on it. Like
I love that stuff. I still do.
She was like, I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, like, but you okay making like 60 or 100 of these parts? She's like, I'm on it. It's like, and it would be perfect.
Like that. Well, I don't know.
as long as the Spotify premium's paid up, she's just yoink right. So, okay, all right. We need to go back around to. You would have enough parts that you would have a green sticker on the part, and Amanda would know the green sticker gets this green domino plate, which sets the offset for the joinery.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So that sets the height on that the joint is routed on.
Yeah.
Because everything had an offset. And
Are you designing everything so that it uses like one domino bit?
No.
It's probably the same size domino.
Yeah, maybe it was. Maybe it was the same size. Yeah, it probably was the same size domino. And it was more like we had multiple components in the piece. And so I think we had like 4 or 5 different color stickers. And so I would just go through, and it would also identify what that part was. So it's like there was a chart. And I kind of don't remember it totally, but so it's not like Amanda was switching back and forth all the time. She'd be like, okay, these dividers, yellow stickers, at the location where it goes. We also had some plexiglass laser cutout for the center lines so that she could line up from the back. Do you remember that?
Gosh,
yeah. And then she would lay that out, and they would correspond to certain parts, and then she could just like kind of without thinking is the goal is like maybe rude that sounds like a well-made jig is to take the thought out of it, right? It's to do it precisely, safely, efficiently. But yeah, you don't have to think. If you're grabbing a layout stick and you're like spending 10 minutes going, wait, which way references what? And then it's you're not doing a good job, and mistakes happen. So yeah, it took us a minute to figure that system out. Like we figured it out together. But yeah, it worked well.
Yeah. And it's was a huge advantage to, I think that any student can learn from is just like getting into habits of like, I'm going to stack this material. I remember assisting classes that after you moved on from the beginning classes at Austin School of Furniture, somebody took over and I like had milled a bunch of parts and just setting them to where if I'm facing the planer, they're set to where I just move that stack over. I'm not having to look through every part and figure out how to like run it through the planer, and just like habits like that become doing those things 100 times made me not think about it now, you know?
Yeah, like how you set your joiner and planer up so that you read the grade once and you don't have to look at it again.
You're just running the boards through the planer by the time you've joined them. Yeah.
What did Alexis DeLise call those, Amanda? Who I think should be the third person on this conversation and not me, because I'm wildly out of place right now, and Alex would be like right there with y'all.
She had a great slogan for it.
What was it, like micro habits or something like that?
Micro habits.
Like these little habits that you do 400 times a day, but once you get used to doing them, they make everything you do faster. So yeah, Phil, you would be the king of micro habits, I bet.
Yeah. I mean, and it adds up. Well, those things add up, even if you're doing a one-off piece.
It is funny how, like, Heron, you talk about, I'm like, wait, they're talking about me? Because in my head, I feel very cluttered. I'm like, wait, this person sounds organized.
It's possible that you are, and you have to be this organized in order to rise above. And if that's what it takes, that's what it takes. You know, know your weaknesses and compensate for them as appropriate. So, what's a good question here in the deck, Amanda, for Phil?
Would we do? I'm leaning towards the lumbercore one. Is that just me?
Yep.
I feel like that's a really good one. I'll jump into it. So lumbercore. How thin do you think the inner core can be? I've been wanting to scale down lumbercore to as thin as possible for smaller items. Maybe 1/16 to 1/8 inch core, 1/16 crossbanding, and then 1/16 face and backer veneer. So like between 5/16 to 3/8 is just finished thickness. It's really hard to say. Do you see any issues with going thin? I would just throw a face / backer veneer on thin plywood, but not finding any plywood that's actually flat. And it's hit and miss at best.
That was a good question. That was some really thin. Like, no, I wouldn't go that thin. So the thinnest I have gone with the core itself. Right.
Can we take a minute and explain lumbercore to those who might not know? Because a lot of people might not know, Phil.
And you should have the issue number of Tim Coleman's. So Tim, I think we're like 3 or 4 issues back. He did a whole thing on it. So Tim and John Cameron kind of set me down this path a little bit. Like a particular technique Tim does was really eye-opening to me. So you probably fact check me on this, but I look at it as lumbercore was kind of before plywood manufacturing, and there's a difference between kind of how they did it in Europe and how they did it in America. And in Europe, and I'm not sure if there's an actual name for it. In one of Tage Freed's book, he has a tiny little paragraph, and it kind of just says, paraphrasing, but he's like, in Europe, the lumbercore staves, the edges were never glued together. But in America, they were glued together. And so the difference with that is people might know butcher board or block board. Mm-hmm. And so those are typically a hardwood core and the strips, maybe 1 inch wide or so, poplar or, is it bass? I can't remember the other, maybe bass. So very stable, somewhat lighter woods. And the difference of how we do it is those staves never get glued together on the edge, and a cross banding that goes perpendicular to the staves, like 16th poplar is what I usually use. I buy it from Certainly Wood. I'm not making that. Holds that. So top and the bottom, both faces get it, and so the core is suspended in that and allowed each layer has about 20 thousandths to move. And so what creates that gap, this is the big difference. And I was on the phone with Tim and he told me this, and I said some profanity but I was just really like blown away because it saves so much time. What's crazy about this technique is it goes against everything I ever teach. And so you figure out, you got to work backwards, right? You're like, all right, I want my final panel to be this. You got to figure out what your face veneers are, what your cross banding is. That leaves you what your core should be. And so you take these poplar planks and you join and plane them, and I'll kind of rotate planing until I get to that thickness. And then I'm going to go to the bandsaw and I'm just dropping 1-inch staves, which is usually, we tell people never to do that, right? Because you want to rough out your material, then bring it slowly down to dimension so you can control it. It's amazing. Poplar is incredibly stable. So dropping them off, maybe out of a whole batch, like a cabinet, I might throw away 8 pieces that have twisted and gone a little bit crazy. But for the most part, they just don't. They come back together really well. And there might be a little bit of bow and stuff, but that bandsaw edge is what comes back together. And so you leave it.
So they're getting joined edge to edge inside that panel.
Yes. So they're coming back. You're dissecting this board, but the edges never go across the joiner again. Right. Yeah. So like the bandsaw surface is what is coming back together, and it gives it like this little cushion for the wood movement to happen. And it saves a ton of time. Like in the past, I used to mill these stupid strips, like totally S4S the strips. And then I would use packing tape to create that gap, like blue tape. So like on like I'd put them all on edge.
Which is really smart.
And it works really well, but like I put them on edge, put strips, and then you slice them apart, put the tape back together, and it leaves you about 8 thousandths of a gap in between. And this is at the ends, because that gets cut off later on. So not in the field, right? Or else that defeats the purpose of the gap. So that cushion allows it to give that movement. It saves you a crap load of time. And then if you have I have a torsion box in my vacuum bag, and then I will do the cross banding. It's just taped at the end, so it's held together with tape that gets cut off later on. I'm not putting clamps on it. I'm wanting gaps between them, and then there's no memory to it, so it's just kind of it all gets forced down and stays really, really flat. And then you have to do it's just a lot of freaking work. Then you've got to do your edge banding sequence, and that changes depending on what it is, and then your face veneer goes over that. It's really helpful if you use polyurethane glue and not water-based glue, and I've noticed, sometimes in woodworking we just do things because it's the way we've done it, right? So it's really helpful when you don't do it the way people say do it, and then you see what happens. And so I had that experience where I ran out of Gorilla Glue, and I had one more panel I forgot about, so I just went ahead and glued it with yellow glue. And this project sat there for probably 3 to 4 months before I came back to the panels. And the only panel that warped and twisted was the yellow glue panel. And so I think it's when it starts drying, evaporation, you're adding moisture to it. Yeah. And Tim Coleman, has been so helpful. He's my online mentor, and John Cameron too. They all do it.
Do you have Gorilla Glue pants?
Gorilla Glue pant? No, because I'm not sloppy. Okay.
Well, Tim stops. He goes, "I gotta go change my pants because I'm gonna use Gorilla Glue." And
for real?
He really does. He goes inside, changes his pants, and then comes.
Oh, that's hilarious! All my pants are Gorilla Glue pants.
Yeah. But so for anyone that's curious, we'll definitely post a link to Tim's article, and then very, very soon we've got a video workshop coming out soon with Tim building the full circle cabinet, and it's like. Nice. Beginning to end, and I think episode 1 is 45 minutes of lumber core glue up stuff, and it's the whole geeks about it. Yep.
But to that guy, to that person's question, the thinnest I've done in the core it's been like 3/8.
Okay.
The best way to find out is you just do a test. I just haven't done it. It seems like he said some thicknesses there. The 16th to an 8, that to me would just not. I don't think that would work. And so a lot of times if I am trying to get a thin ply, but I want it flat, I will use multiple plies and cross banding between the plies to get me a flat ply. So if I want 1/4 inch or, just over, I might use like 2/8 inch or just under 1/8 inch, and then like a cross banding veneer between that and vacuum bag it instead of just using a 1/4 inch sheet.
Do you change the width of the plies? So like if you were going to do a 1/2 inch thick panel or ply, would you still leave them 1 inch wide each stave, or would you make them thinner?
Are you talking about making the lumber coat like not ply, like the staves?
Yeah.
Okay. The thick. So usually, just my rule of thumb is 7/8 to 1 inch wide.
Okay.
Is what I typically do. You can go wider. The wider you go, the more movement in each individual piece. But I've seen people go like 2 inch wide on tabletops. I think Tim's even done something like that. But
would you go thinner though, for thinner staves for a thinner core? And I don't think so. You would just still keep it about 7/8. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Cool. Well, this question from Bevel Up, and I'm sure this is ever changing. So maybe there's like a 2 years ago answer and a today answer, but how do you balance teaching load with commission work?
I start teaching full time. So that it is a really, it's difficult. So I didn't teach so things have changed, right? Like you said. So maybe 2 years ago or 3 years ago, I only would teach maybe 2 classes a year, 3 classes or something like that. So that wasn't too bad. And I kind of struggled a little bit with it because I kind of knew if I had enough commission work to keep me busy and I just stayed in my shop, I probably would make more money. But I really enjoyed teaching, and I'm incredibly passionate about sharing the craft because people took time to do that for me. Now, obviously, I'm being paid to do it too, which helps. And it used to be like there's a little bit of security in teaching, but I really did come to that realization. I was like, I could just stay in my shop, and that's why a lot of people don't teach. Like it doesn't pay the best. And you could just stay in your shop and just work and probably be fine. But I did learn I was becoming a better craftsperson because of it.
Mm-hmm.
To teach it is kind of the next level thing where it's like, people ask you the most random things and you've got to have answers for it, or it makes you think about like why you're doing what you're doing. And I made amazing connections and clients. Like I've done a lot of clients through teaching. But I really just enjoyed the teaching. What happened in the last few years is we made the decision, and this was a wonderful thing, that we had been wanting to leave Texas for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And we had friends a lot of our friends moved, and a lot of them they just need their laptop, right? And that's it. So they could move easily. For me, it was this thing of it's impossible because I have commission after commission after commission, and my shop's here. The idea of like moving, setting up a shop again, and then picking back up on commission work just seemed nearly impossible. And I didn't have some big cushion to help me do that. So when we kind of realized, like, if we lean on teaching heavily, then that can pay the bills for the most part, do a few commissions in between, and that will allow me to move. So that's kind of why I started. I was doing 48 flights a year teaching, which is insane. And to keep in mind, most of that is because everywhere, especially from freaking Maine, is 3 flights each way.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was just nuts. And so that was helpful. That helped else to move, right? But then commission, I kind of shut down the shop somewhat. I still have a little backlog of work to do, and work's picked up again. And then this whole new, moving to Maine and this opportunity that came up, I was like, you know what? I think I'm ready to focus on just teaching. It frees me. I get, 3 months off out of the year where I can travel with my family. I can go take some classes to continue to develop myself in this craft. I have patrons and people that collect work that are just very patient and willing to wait, so I can design and build pieces or speculative work. I get to learn a ton as I'm teaching also. So it's just, I'm really excited about all these opportunities that are coming up. I know it's going to be a lot of work. I know I'm probably going to need that 3 months off. But yeah, so it just felt right. So I have a shop on my property. I am going to be moving forward with finishing it out this summer. I hope to be able to rent it out to a friend who can use it for the most part, and I'll just be in and out because I still would need to have my own shop. There's times can't sleep at night, and you just go into the shop and you work out an idea. I miss that a lot. So yeah, it's challenging. It's really quite difficult. I think if you can not take too much on, if you do like 2 or 3 classes a year, I think that's pretty easy to handle.
How many, at your peak, how many commissions a year were you doing?
Not much. I mean, like, I set myself up very intentional to just be very selective.
Okay.
So I didn't have to do work I didn't want to do, which took a bit to get there. Maybe besides those crazy cabinets me and Amanda did, maybe 6 to 8 pieces a year. Probably not even quite that, like major pieces like consoles and stuff. And then of course there's like, chairs. So I'm not counting like each chair.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So it'd be like 24 chairs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh. And how much of that selectiveness was taught to you by Michael?
I think quite a bit. I think, like he would say, dude, you already knew the path you were going on. Like everything you did leading up to that was very intentional. Although in my mind, I was just like following whatever opportunities that came up. But I guess I put myself in the path of those opportunities. So I knew from an early age that I wanted to do what I would call like studio art type work. And so I knew by that, seeing Michael, and he does like maybe 4 pieces a year. He does have a wife that also works, and their relationship together is beautiful. They have beautiful land and an amazing, I was going to say kid. He's a grown man now. He's an architect. But I knew that when I started working for Michael, and before that, I had already had a lot of machines. So I would take on some work when I was working for a company in Florida for 4 years, little side gigs to buy the tools so that I would have my own little shop. Then when I moved to Texas, I knew I needed to start working at building my shop. So I started building it slowly over weekends and weeknights whilst working with Michael and doing everything myself.
Mm-hmm.
For the most part, I had a few friends help out so that when I stepped off by myself, I wouldn't have to take out a loan to build a shop. And then by doing that, take work that I don't want to do. And it's not shunning, like whatever works for you is fantastic. I just didn't want to end up doing like kitchen cabinets and stuff. I would suck at it. Like I would not be very good at it. And so I knew I wanted to build one of a kind pieces. So I just made sure my overhead stayed very low. And I had a wife that was so willing. She homeschooled the kids at that time, and she was just very willing to be as supportive as possible. And she was, okay with a house not being finished, and the typical kind of crass
unfinished house. What's that like,
unfinished
Phil?
house.
I don't.
Then I
didn't
finished
get
the
a little
house and we
itchy
sold
when
it.
you said that.
Yeah. So I think
Shops in better condition than your house. What's that like? I don't
I
know.
know, right? I was like, hang on a second. Like when we built my shop, people in our neighborhood thought it was going to be our house. And they thought we were going to knock down the house, and that was going to be our house because I went a little bit extra on the exterior.
Very nice on the outside.
We're excited for your next thing.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
And while it may not seem obvious to you, it was like, I think Amanda and I were like she was like, oh, Phil's doing this. I was like, yeah, of course he is.
Yes,
you know, it's just
Yeah.
like, come on, you know.
So well deserved. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Very
appreciate it.
perfect.
It's,
perfect placement.
It's going to be a fun, yeah. Which, by the way, little plug.
Yeah.
Application deadline is March 1st.
I really meant to bring that up. So like if people want to, so first off, y'all listeners, this is a place to hang out.
Mm-hmm.
Like Rockport,
Yeah,
it's Rockport,
amazing.
right? Not Rockville, Rockport, right?
Rockport, yeah.
Rockport, Maine is like when you think of like, you know, the Christmas movie made in Maine, like kind of gross because it's so picturesque and beautiful and nice and yeah, that's it. So that's the place you want to go spend 9 months. You want to go hang out with Phil, right? Learn some woodworking.
Well, some woodworking from me and many, many others.
Yeah.
It's an amazing lineup. So that's what makes this program, I think, pretty unique is it's not one or two instructors for 9 months. It's you get someone, I think I forget how many. It's like quite a few. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 or so instructors, I think, that come through. So, yeah.
Yeah. It's pretty ideal.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I stuck around. And it seems like this place does that to people. It seems like everyone that's actually working here on staff were like students and were like, I don't want to leave. So yeah. And there's a lot of other opportunities too. Go onto their website and, you know, definitely check out the fellowship, which is where I'm working out of right now. Cause I think a lot of people have been a little bit confused, like where the hell's Phil? And so I'm lucky enough, I've been able to work out the fellowship building here at the school. So yeah.
So applications are due March 1st.
March 1st.
Get on it, folks.
That wraps another episode of Shop Talk Live. If you enjoyed it, please let us know on YouTube or whatever podcast you subscribe to. We always appreciate that. I always like to mention our Discord channel. It's a great way to chat with the woodworking community. You get an inside look at upcoming episodes of Shop Talk Live and can even submit questions. I would also like to mention that our first build challenge is more than halfway done. We have a 30-day build challenge happening every month, and this month is pencil boxes. And I haven't started mine, but I promise it will be happening this weekend. And we will see you in a couple of weeks.
And also, you didn't know, but Amanda was a plant so that I could get on the podcast.
This all comes full circle.
And all of a sudden she's going to log off and wander back up to Maine or something and be like, all right, job done.
Let's try not to be too obvious. I'm like, I can't say too much nice things about Phil or it's gonna be obvious what's going on.
It's going to be obvious.
No.